is not kept. All the power left unchecked. Humanize, immunize, legalize, politicize. Makes you wonder who's in control. All this division and mental. Who's in control? 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 That's the latest track from Green Ink. It's coming out on May 17th, so check it out. Go to our website. Always the best place to find our artist music is on our website at indietunes.com or indietunesrecords.com. That's a great place to find great music. And all of our artist music is there, showcased on our website. You can stream it for free, and you can download it for $1 a track, cheaper than a cup of coffee, and lasts you a lifetime. That's right. All right. Well, listen, I'm having a technical difficulty here tonight with my phone. I usually use it to share out to social media, so I'm trying to fire it back up here. In the meantime, we're going to talk tonight about the relationship again, about social media and how it relates to digital music and its sales. We're also going to talk about return on investment, loyalty in the music business, and a whole bunch of other topics that are probably going to take us down a few rabbit holes. But before we do, I'm going to introduce my host with the most from the East Coast, my co-host from the most from the East Coast, Sean McKenna from the podcast Barstools and Band Talk, Rim Shots with Sean. There he is.
Sounded like something straight out of Dr. Seuss.
There you go. It is like Dr. Seuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like out of the Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Green Eggs and Ham.
Speaking of which, people may or may not know that was your band that previewed. And I'm going to tell you a funny little story. Just yesterday, I had somebody tear me a new one because how dare I promote myself on my own thing. And I was speechless. Yeah, so how dare you? How
dare I? I know a selfless. Just what do you call that? Self-promotion stuff.
Yeah, Kearney Huckster. It's amazing how people see things. It really is. And that might get us. I've been cranky the last couple of days. That might get us down the rabbit hole, loyalty in the music business. But who knows? But it's funny the way people see things.
I have to say that I've been a little cranky too. And you know what? I'm always telling everybody your camera is backwards. Mine's on mirror for whatever reason. There we are. Now switch around the other way. There we go. No regrets. Right there. See there? No regrets. Not
mine's all right. Mine's all right.
Rim Shots with Sean. There we go.
Thank you, Jeff McPherson, who made me that shirt. Jeff's a valuable member of Barstools and has been since the beginning.
Talk about self-promotion.
Right. Send those cards and letters, kids. I'm sure they're on their way.
Send those cards and letters. That's right. So tonight we're going to talk about some of my favorite topics being, that relationship between social media. Here's the thing that always makes me cringe a little bit when artists want to start putting their music out on digital media platform.
Yeah.
And it's always, what is your social media presence, your digital media presence already before you start putting music out? And people wonder, I put my music out and all I get is crickets. Well, if you're all you're getting is crickets, maybe it's because that you haven't really developed a good correlation between your social media and your music. What do you think about that?
It's possible. I had a very, 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 very interesting conversation today. A couple of conversations with people that both work for major labels who are off doing consulting on their own. And one of them basically equated the whole crabs in the pot thing, where if you try to do more than somebody else, the crabs in the pot will pull you back down. And he said it's level. So you're the crab in the pot, you get pulled back down. Then you get up and you're almost over, and everybody ignores you that is your friend because they're jealous of your success. And then you have some.
Whoa! Just all of a sudden you just conked out there.
Well,
All right.
and then you have more success, and then everybody
Yeah.
says, "I remember him when I played with him, and I went to." And it's the human nature factor that unfortunately in this business you're always going to have to deal with. And so what does that mean? You've got to, they keep saying it. You've got to find your 1,000 subscribers that are loyal to you and that support you and that are engaged. And anything above that's probably already artificially, uh, inflated.
Yeah, I think that you're right about that. I mean, when you reach a certain level of success, all of a sudden, people that you thought would be in your corner and supporting you are no longer there. And is there a sense of, oh well, he's doing really 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 well, doesn't need my support, or I'm secretly jealous that this person has obtained some level of success and I'm not going to be part of that success.
I think what it is that so your true friends, and you'll find out that they're few and far between. Your few true friends are going to be happy for you, regardless, and they're going to want to help out any way they can, and they'll do it not expecting anything in return. And if you're a true friend to them, you will help them with stuff. There's no question. I think a lot of people think that if they ignore what you're doing, uh, their level of ignoring will eventually cancel your success out, and it will go away. And that to me, A, you shouldn't care about that, and B, those aren't people that you want in your camp, because at some point in time, you're always on the bubble of whether or not they like you or they don't like you. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah, I
you're always.
stopped worrying about who likes me and doesn't like me a long time ago.
Oh, no question. And the funny thing, like, I live around here in a small town. And Halifax isn't huge, but there's a certain cast of musicians who, um, you know, some of them are great. Some of them think they actually hold the cards to everything that goes on, that's fine too. I don't fit in with any of those groups, but I guess the dirty secret that everybody knows is I've never tried to fit in with any of those groups, because um, they're nice people. They're just not necessarily my people, and we don't see things the same way. It doesn't make them good, doesn't make them bad. Um, but I guess you have to go where your success is. And if it ain't your hometown, man, then it ain't your hometown, and just deal with it and move on.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you that there is definitely that piece of it. Um, you know, one of the things I find really really hard when you're looking at digitally marketing people is their digital media presence, right? And if they don't work hard to develop a digital media presence, it's really really tough slogging to sell their product, which is their music.
Yep.
And we know there's a huge correlation between digital music sales and digital media presence. In fact, Facebook alone can account for upwards of 38 to 40% of music sales. Instagram upwards of 45%. So that's the line share right there, just between those two platforms. And then, a lot of people don't really see the value of X. Now, I'm not on X as much as I am on, which is formerly Twitter. I'm not on X as much as I'm on Facebook and Instagram. However, I find that X is a great place for e-commerce. So if you're looking at doing e-commerce type work and linking up with other people, you'll find promoters, you'll find internet radio stations use X an awful lot to push their brand out there.
Yeah, and I mean, so there's another one that I haven't used for a long time. I was on it quite a bit, which is LinkedIn, and it was so funny because I was on it again the other day, and there was a guy on there that I know quite well, and there was this event that they had on there that they had the mayor of Halifax, promoting this event, and all the people are like, "Oh, the best mayor in the world," and this guy that I know is like, "He should be the mayor of everyone," and I'm sitting there going, "Really?" And I'm sitting there going, "This place hasn't changed in the 4 years I've been off it, where you go on one platform, you say one thing, and you go on the other, and you're prim and proper trying to get business." Um, but I guess anywhere that you can go, the people can see what you're doing, and people can, uh, possibly purchase it, download it, support it. I
That's
guess isn't a bad
interesting.
thing.
You mentioned LinkedIn because I am on LinkedIn as well. Um, I can't even remember the last time I was actually on LinkedIn. It's been forever,
Yeah.
right? And only because I find a lot of the contacts on LinkedIn is being kind of, I don't know, passe. Is that a correct word to
Uh,
use?
they some of them would be. I liken to your buddy that's the accountant that plays guitar and likes to play in the band on the weekend just because he can. It's like, for the most part, it's a great platform if you're trying to do certain types of business. There's no question. Um, I do find that, if you're viewed as maybe uneducated or undereducated, you're not given, a certain amount of love. I mean, I used to be LinkedIn famous, but it was because I was always a great networker. But more importantly, I was known as a great connector. So people would always contact me if they wanted to meet somebody or whatever.
Right.
Um, but I just find, of all of them, that's the one that I like. I had to remove it from my phone yesterday because it was like, oh my god, I, I can't do it, and yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I got like 3,700 followers and 500 different connections on LinkedIn. I probably don't use it as much as I should, and I find a lot of people in the music industry link up with me, and probably not necessarily people that are going to be necessarily my ally or someone that's really going to help me in terms of what it is I'm doing. It's kind of like, um, a friend of mine said to me one time, he said, we're talking about somebody that was doing promotion. And I said, are you going to have them do local promotion for you? He goes, well, have you ever seen the people that respond to all of his local promotion? I said, no. He said, they're all musicians. He said, when was the last time a musician came out to your gig?
Yeah, that's fair. And you want to know it's funny because a friend of mine had a birthday party a number of months back, and they did an open invite, so he was going to be there the whole day, and he was
Right.
playing, and some other people were playing, and we get there, and his wife informs me that I was one of his friends that showed up, and he was disappointed, and he said, "Well, he shouldn't be." I said, "Because that's what I'm used to," and when she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't mean to sound, mean or negative in any way, but for whatever reason, my friends that are musicians always find something to do. Either they've got a gig or whatever. And so I invite them because it's the proper thing to do. I just don't expect them to show up. Maybe that's a little sad. I don't know. Um, but, I'll have friends that are not even in the music business that'll show up no problem. I'm looking on the wall at a thing for my birthday where a bunch of people signed a big picture of me, and very few of them on there are musicians. It's friends that aren't in the business that took the time to come and have a piece of cake and drink a beer.
Yeah, and if your full-time musician buddies are busy and they're out gigging, they're probably out gigging when you are. So there's little chance that they're going to show up at your gigs. I guess his point is that this person wasn't really going after the target audience, which is actual music lovers. People that thousand people, right? Those thousand dedicated fans or followers that you want to market your music to. Um, we talked about this before. I mean, when we look at what's happening in terms of way things are shaping up on our website relative to some of the issues we've had with things like Spotify.
Spotify. Sorry, I had to fix my eyebrows there.
There's definitely a greater advantage to the artist when they earn 75% on every download. And so, that's literally 75 cents on every dollar that we earn off the website that goes to the artist. They're not going to get that anywhere else, plus getting all the label services that come along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, and you and I have talked about some of those label services exist. Brent and I talked about it last week when he was on the show, and he encoding music that takes so long, about an hour per track between, because I always get the wave master from the artist, I render down the MP3s, and then I encode both tracks. And the way the encoding software works, you have to encode each track separately. So you have to go through and you code the MP3 or the wave master, and then you go back and you encode the MP3, and then you're cross-referencing the two to make sure that all of the data, the metadata, is exactly correct. Now, that's just one piece of the publishing piece that people do when they're doing the DIY. And of course, a lot of people don't do a great job of it. And I've had artists on the label who've looked at the metadata that I put in the tracks, and I go, holy crap, that's a lot of metadata in there.
Yeah.
And part of it is for a number of reasons. One of those is to prove the ownership of the track to the artist, if they are the owner of the masters. If they're owner of the publishing, the ISWCs being in there, which is the International Standard Work Code that's assigned to the written work of the music. And so that's really, really important to me to make sure that data is in there, but also metadata that when you're playing music on a platform, it's recognizable on that platform. So there's in most automobiles, it's you've probably seen the service called Grace Note.
Mm-hmm.
So Grace Note is actually that part of the computerization in vehicles that reads information on music, digital music that's being played in your car. So when you're, listening to Sirius XM in your car, you'll actually see the name of the artist. Sometimes the artwork is even displayed. If the artwork's embedded in the metadata, we do all that now. And when I first started doing this, we weren't embedding all of that metadata in the tracks because the technology really wasn't there to read all that really well. Now the technology's advanced to the point where now we're doing nothing but MP3s. When we're doing MP3s for radio play, we're processing them in 320 kilobits per second as opposed to 192 because of the technology. People have way more storage space than they used to have. And so the thought is, well, why not, for that extra few megabytes, actually have a digital track that plays as well as a CD?
Huh.
There was an article circulating around, and Darby Mills actually had it on her profile today. Did you see that one about the digital music sales and CDs? Yep. and vinyl? It was a really interesting thing. I'm going to go over to her. And by the way, Darby's going to be coming on the show.
Yeah, nice.
We've just got to set a date with her. So Darby Mills, formerly of the Headpins, and now with her own project called the Darby Mills Project. And she shared, actually, it wasn't her post. It was someone else's post. And of course, several people have shared it since then. It's very similar to that one about the mechanics post. And if you saw the one with the mechanics post going around where it said, you don't expect to pay me well, but a mechanic has all of these tools in his tool chest. Yep. That's why a mechanic makes $50 an hour, or in a shop rate makes $105 an hour, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's paying for all that overhead, all those tools. Those tools have to be periodically replaced. Some of them have to be recalibrated. There's a whole lot of work with all that. And someone made the comparison with musicians. The same thing happens. You have to periodically replace skins on your drums.
Yep.
You're probably always replacing drumsticks.
Very little, because I use the Ahead unbreakable ones, but sleeves, I replace sleeves every now and again, no question.
Yeah, so you're obviously replacing sleeves or other gear.
Yep.
And I want to make a point before Donnie goes. He says, when I'm not gigging, I like going to see other bands play. I learn much from other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Great attitude, eh?
Fantastic attitude.
Great attitude. Don Coulter of Creatures of Condition, who are on our record label. And he's the drummer, but really the driving force behind Creatures of Condition. And I know he's still working on some more new tracks for release, but I think he drives quite a distance. I think he drives like 3.5 hours to go where he records. So it's always a major trip for him to go into the studio to do his recording.
Time to put some of that gas money into the glass jar and save up to build a studio in your house.
There you go. That might be it. Anyways, so this was interesting. It came by her feed, and she shared it 7 hours ago. Did you know that just one CD or vinyl sale earns more income for an artist than 200 hours of streaming? One $20 to $25 album earns about the same as the royalties paid on 5,000 track streams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the interesting thing about that. When you're pressing vinyl or when you're putting out CDs, there may be, depending on who's involved in that project, if a major record label is involved in that project, there's going to be a thing called recoupables.
Mm-hmm.
So that $25 album is not what the artist ends up getting. They don't get the $25 off the sale of that album. They might get $3 or $4 maximum off that album.
And that's probably a stretch.
Yeah, that could be a stretch. I know that back in the day, when vinyl was really, really popular, it was good for an artist if they could make $2 a unit.
Yep,
that's a lot of records to sell to get your recoupable back on a $50,000 recording.
Well, and that's the thing, and Uncle Sean's about to give you some harsh realities as they were given to me this afternoon by a couple of label people. Basically. And we talked about it a lot. It was confirmed. A record deal is a bank loan. That was confirmed by two label people who said the exact same thing. And they basically said that if you're not on a major and you're an independent artist, unless you're prepared to put an awful lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and that might be money, it might be resources, it might be sweat equity, it might be whatever, or you're not getting grant money, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to have your material heard by anybody, because the old business ain't set up to find those overnight success stories as much as YouTube and the world wants you to believe it. And that's the harsh reality of the business that we are in.
Yeah, and these days major record labels are really more interested in signing TikTok sensations and Instagram sensations, and they won't even look at you if you don't have at least 500,000 followers.
Well, this is it. And I mean, the other thing too is, they're spending less and less time on radio, because the deals that you talked about them signing with the streaming services, they're getting the bulk of their revenues from the streaming services, and it's the labels that are getting them, not necessarily the artists, right? So, I mean, a couple of major labels, decimated their radio departments. So the people that go out and try to get stuff played on radio, they hardly have anybody in them anymore.
Yeah, it's the owners of the master recordings who actually get paid. So if the label owns the master recordings outright, the artist is at the label's mercy, depending on whatever deal they have with the label in terms of what share of that streaming revenue that they actually receive.
Well, very few artists actually own their masters, right?
Yeah,
they did the Robert Johnson meeting at the Crossroads, and it's only recently that you're seeing some of these artists getting them back.
Here's an interesting thing too, is that a lot of these contracts with these record labels, some of them were signed long before digital services even existed.
Hmm.
And so the contracts themselves didn't necessarily include digital services. So here's the interesting thing: if the label owns the master recording, is the artist even entitled to any of the revenues made from those digital services if the contract doesn't include it? So, you know, and that I'm sure that's resulted in at least a few legal discussions and maybe even some legal battles over rights to those master recordings. And of course, are there sunset clauses and other things involved in these contracts that change to become game changers for everybody down the road? I mean, the reality is that streaming services alone are not going to make you rich,
Nope.
right? They're not going to make you rich. They're going to do a lot of other things like marketing you, branding you, getting your music out in front of hundreds of thousands of people, or at least the opportunity exists to get it in front of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Mhm.
But, we're looking at different ways to create revenue for artists. And a lot of that comes again, I want to go back to that whole, if you want to invest in something, right? Invest in something that's going to give you a better return on your music. So investing time in terms of social media, yes, develop a social media presence, develop a presence in social media where you have the engagement of followers who will buy your product when it comes to market,
Yep. Um,
right?
the problem is, um, you get people that are trying to do everything on their own because they don't want to pay for stuff, or they feel they shouldn't pay for stuff. So they're not going to take a contingency based sort of thing where it's based on sales, right? They want to keep everything, and so 100% of zero will be zero. That's math I can do, right? Because you can't do everything, and I'm finding that out as recently as 2 weeks ago. That you think you can do everything, and you can. It's not possible, because when you think you got everything under control, something flies out, the back of the truck, and you got to stop and go get it, and you just physically can't do it. You have to basically take your time and resources and invest it in something that's going to work and that's going to pay you back.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, if I was to look at, if I charged back our artists for every track that I get ready for publishing, by the time it, gets up on our website, by the time it goes on 160 different digital platforms, and in some cases, I've got to rework the artwork if it's not the right dimensions or if it's not the right format, and then um, putting all of the metadata and the tracks. By the time that's all done, I've got $150 worth of work
Hmm.
into that track, into each track. Now, that would not be feasible for me to charge every artist $150 every time I publish a single track for them. That would be, that's like $1,500 for an album to publish it.
So isn't it interesting though? So somebody goes and they get a DistroKid account and they start to try to do it themselves.
Right.
So they question I guess the agreement, or they don't want to pay, they want to do it themselves. They don't equate the amount of time, their own time, that they're putting into something like that.
Yeah, I mean, figure it out. And the thing is that, you know, if this venture has taught me nothing else, it's taught me that most musicians, artists, don't know anything about metadata or all the metadata that's required that needs to go into a track to ensure that you can squeeze every last ounce out of that track in terms of royalty, in terms of where royalties are concerned. And we get music into a lot of places that you would never be able to get that music in yourself, right?
Yep. Yep.
You made a mention about the label. You said the other day that you don't believe that Michelle's music would be in all the places it is now if it weren't for the label.
It's true, and that's why when we had our Spotify thing, and we won't even go into that. I honestly didn't. I honestly didn't really care because when I started looking at stuff that happens on YouTube, for example, with bar stools, I'm not even on Spotify, and I'm kind of like, okay, great. I mean, yeah, the song got added to a whole bunch of playlists, and that's amazing. But it just seems like it's this daily slog to try to, you get somewhere and then you do something else to disadvantage the artist and make it harder for them. So it's kind of like that can do what it's going to do. I want to focus on people going to the website, and if they don't, fine, go to the YouTube page and look at the videos and stuff like that. And you and I both know we've got some things going on with the whole cover song stuff that's gonna kind of be going in between releases, and
That's
so
right.
we'll hit somebody with something. And you know, I just the whole thing about everybody else is doing it, that's never flied for me. That's something and maybe I'll take that to it'll be the epitaph on my grave that it was the dumbest thing I ever said. But that to me doesn't mean that it's the proper thing to do.
I
Um,
think the one thing that we're really discovering too is that we have a potential for artists to get better return on their investment by directing people to our website and getting people to download the digital music right off our website.
mhm, absolutely.
And I've made this remark before when I see these posts about the digital the CDs and the vinyl and all that stuff. I always put a post on there about the record label and post the link to our website because first of all, uh, an artist earns 75 cents on every dollar that we earn
Hmm.
off their music off our website. Second of all, there's no overhead, right? You don't have to maintain a supply of CDs, you don't have to maintain a supply of vinyl. These are digital downloads in high res digital format that people can download for $1 a track. If we're right now working on a shopping cart system on the website that would allow people to mix and match tracks and fill a shopping cart full of tracks, and for every time they load 11 tracks, the 11th track will be free.
Hmm.
So you get 22 tracks, you get 2 tracks for free, right? And we're also going to make it possible for people to be able to download um, um, playlists. Um, and I got good news for you. We're going to be able to have exclusively on the website your podcast.
There you go. And that's
um, and we're talking about exclusive content. So that may be one piece of exclusive content that people get access to off the website. And we're looking at making this as reasonable as possible for people. So we're talking about, I don't know, roughly 37 cents a day or $5 a month. You can join our website at indietunes.com and get access to everything as a site member. And as a site member, if you join and pay 1 year in advance, you actually get 2 months for free. So you're going to get it even cheaper if you were to go that route. So the music's not free, but it's definitely deeply discounted. But because there's no overhead, there's pure profit for everybody involved.
that,
And we will still publish your music globally on top of publishing it on our website, and we'll put the links to Spotify and iTunes to your music off our website. So you have the option if you belong to one of those streaming services. A lot of people do. A lot of people, have monthly subscriptions. Then you can go and play the artist music for free off our website, listen to it. If you like it, then you can download it or buy it. And if you have a membership with like Spotify or iTunes, you can go there and use your membership to download the music or stream it there to your heart's content. But if you don't, download it off our website. It's $1 a track. It's cheaper than a cup of coffee and lasts you a lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, people want. I'm not going to go into my speech about people want stuff for free, but I mean,
Right.
it's funny how and I don't at this point in time know how you can convince somebody that will go and spend $600 on a concert ticket and complain about the $600 and that, Live Nation is gouging and whatever, but they'll still do it. But then they won't spend $1 on a track of an indie artist. It makes no sense to me.
So
But maybe
here's an interesting thing. So one of the artists on the label came to me. This is a really interesting marketing ploy. He said, "Why don't we sell T-shirts at a marked up price and give the download of the music for free?"
great idea.
Because he said now people are getting a tangible. They're getting the T-shirt and then they get the music along with the T-shirt.
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
I mean, it really did tickle my brain a little bit to think maybe this is a different marketing strategy. Maybe it's a different way to market music. I mean, we know that the music market is broken.
Yep.
I mean, it's been broken for a long time, right? I mean, when vinyls and CDs went by the wayside, and then you had like LimeWire and Napster spring into action, they were giving away everybody's music for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time. Everybody disses Lars Ulrich for suing, or at least instigating the suing of Napster. But if he hadn't have done that, people wouldn't have realized how much music was being pirated.
Well, no question. And I mean, I've told the story many a times. I've met Lars on a number of occasions, and he's consistent. I'll give him that. But is it wrong as a business person? He's protecting his business interests, and I don't understand why people are going, "Oh, he's greedy." Well, if there was a guy that owned a car dealership and somebody was coming in stealing his cars, would he not try to stop that? Or if there was a doctor, it's no different, and I don't understand why. I think it's because music always looks so much fun that people don't treat it as a real thing, which is a shame. Because as soon as you do it and you get involved with some people in the business, you realize it's a lot of work, like a lot of work.
That's right. We got some. I want to just take a second in the middle here of the show and just let people know some of the people we got coming on the show. On May the 15th, we have Mark Horton joining us.
My buddy.
Tell everybody a little bit about Mark.
Mark, he's a guy who I didn't go to school with. We went to rival high schools. He went to Cole Harbour High, and I went to Prince Andrew High. Mark's a musician, a wonderful guitar player who decided that, after sludging it out to get into live sound tech, and he became one of the best on the East Coast and wound up working with Ashley McIsaac and the Chieftains, and he actually did live sound for Norah Jones. And then ventured into road managing, and he road managed Sum 41. He's road managed Theory of a Deadman. And now he currently works at Sonic Events here in Halifax and brings in a lot of the concerts that people see here. But most importantly, he is the co-songwriter with Michelle Ryder, and they've really hit a stride. They're banging out song after song after song that is just great. And
Mark's her producer too, right?
Mark, he does the gamut. Mark's the best kept secret in Halifax. I mean, people that know him, and people are always surprised because he's not an out there guy. He's not a guy that beats his chest. You ask him for some advice or whatever, he'll give it, but he's not a bragger. He's not that guy. And when they find out what he's done, I mean, this is a guy who hung out with Mick Mars on the Crew Fest tour when he was with Theory of a Deadman for like months. And
he flies pretty much under the radar because he's not active on social media.
Nope.
And so he flies pretty much under the radar. So Mark's going to be a great guest to come on the show. So if you're thinking about joining us down the road, come join us on March the 15th. Sean and I are going to continue this conversation next week. If I do the show from Nashville, I'm not sure if I'm going to do the show from Nashville or not. Well, that remains to be seen at this point in time, but I'm thinking I might. And then on May the 29th, we have Jason Dozer, who is the mic stand guy.
The mic stand guy.
And did you see his recent posts? Justin Timberlake now is sporting a couple of his microphone stands.
I did see that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not quite sure.
I think that Jason will make microphone stands for just about any artist that requests it.
God love him. You know what? That's the way to be. Have an open mind. Unlike me, who you just become bitter and jaded, and maybe a little unsuccessful. I don't know.
So we're gonna have Jason on the show, and of course, we know what a busy guy he is. He's got the '84 tribute to Van Halen. He's also got the Def Leppard tribute as well, which is really, really busy. And I see he's recruiting other alternate musicians because he uses different musicians for those shows because a lot of those musicians are playing in other projects as well. So he's on May 29th, and then coming up on June the 12th. That's right. So we got more stuff for you. Rudy Sarzo is going to be joining us on June the 12th.
Well, I don't be able to talk to him about something. I won't let the cat out of the bag right now, but I'll have something that I'll be able to talk to him about. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, so Rudy Sarzo of Quiet Riot, as well as Ozzy Osbourne and several other famous people aside from himself that he's rubbed elbows with over the years. I think I saw something not long ago with him and a bunch of other people jamming too with I don't know, who was that? Who did I see him with?
Who, Rudy?
Yeah.
There's a pun. They do the Ronnie James Dio, Rockin' for Ronnie, the cancer benefit. They do a bunch, and there's a whole. Geez, it's funny because I see it. Paul Shortino, that was in Rough Cut, and Sean Duncan, who plays drums in LA Guns, who's a friend of mine. Like it's so funny. It drives me nuts.
We're trying to get Tommy London to come on the show.
Tommy's moving to LA. So his girlfriend, Britt
Lightning.
Britt Lightning. She's in LA. Tommy's been in New York. It's not going to change his footprint on Sirius XM, which is vast because I think he hosts every friggin' show on there. But he's decided that he is moving to Los Angeles, and I think he's moving mid-month. I get a note from him last week, and he posted on socials this week. So he will do it. We just have to keep following up with him.
Yeah, so once he gets settled in LA, it probably we'll probably be able to the stars may align a little bit better for us. We've got a new artist joining the label, a band called Angry Hill. You know who that is?
Angry Hill.
Yeah.
No.
They just got finished doing a single with Lorraine Lewis of Vixen.
Those guys.
Yeah. So they're going to be joining the label. They've got several releases out there. I think somewhere around, I want to say 13 albums, something like that. They've toured with several bands. One of the bands they toured extensively with was Godsmack. So they've done extensive touring themselves. They've got some shows coming up this summer. They hail from Boston, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be an interesting add to the label as well. They'll probably be able to give us some more insights into their life on the road and what markets they've been able to find themselves into these days. But Angry Hill, they've joined the label. We've got a new band from Australia that's joined the label called Trickshot.
Mm-hmm.
I used one of their shots. We got the one of their tracks called "We Got the Night." That was one of their debut tracks back in, I think it was when did that come out? I'm going to take a quick look at it here. I got it right in front of me. It was launched in September of 2023. So they really just started putting music out. And when Dave reached out to me, he said, we're going to put brakes on everything because we really like what you're doing. He watches the show fairly religiously, likes what we're doing on the label, has hired my daughter to manage his Instagram. So, that's a cool thing is that, I have family members now that are involved, not necessarily in my business. She has her own business. Rock Buzz PR is the name of her company. If you're interested in social media, find Rock Buzz PR on Instagram, message her, DM her on Instagram at Rock Buzz PR, and she'll send you a quote about what services she might be willing to provide you to run your Instagram.
Can I sell something now?
Oh man, always closing, always be closing. ABC, buddy.
ABC. Yeah, no.
ABC.
I don't begrudge anybody for doing that. It's you have to do it, man. In this day and age, it's funny how, the people that don't want to pay for something are the ones that want to make the buck.
Right, right. And like I said, you and I've been talking about this for some time now, and there is, time is money, and people don't look at that seriously enough. I mean, and like I said, I literally, by the time I take a track and get it ready and publish it in all the places it needs to go, and that doesn't even include playlist pitching, right?
Yep.
Or pitching for music and television. And you and I are sort of scratching the surface on that, as well as with Sirius XM.
Yeah.
And Brent Durner and I have been scratching the surface on with IMDb. And it's the whole thing is, you take the music, you throw it against the wall, see what sticks, and then you hurry up and wait, because that's how it works.
It's totally how it works. But while you're hurrying up and waiting, you got to be doing other things. Like, that's one of the things that I've never not done that. However, I started taking a little course with the magnificent Matt Starr about knowing your worth and setting your rate and getting paid what you're supposed to get paid. And some of the info on that, you go like, whoa, have I ever been doing this wrong? Simple fact of the matter is that, if you're doing a gig and not getting paid, you're not in the business. If you're, you know what I mean?
Here's a new thing that I started doing with radio, because internet radio, independent internet radio hosts and owners and whatnot always wanted their submissions separately. They always want you to do a separate email for everything. That's so time consuming in terms of, it's almost a full-time job to do radio submissions. What I've been doing lately is developing relationships with radio programmers, DJs, radio station owners, and saying, look, I'm going to send you a link to a Dropbox. And in that Dropbox, there's a folder with each of our artists and their music in there, along with artwork and other things for you to play on your show. Go through it. Go through that library. Take a look. It's all organized alphabetically. Go through it. Check it out. And as a result, well, you've seen what's been happening, right? We've been getting a lot more radio play. And even some of our artists' music that I consider, and most would consider to be stale dated because it's been out for a year or longer, it's now seen the light of day again on radio, which is really, really cool, because even though it's old, it's new for somebody else.
Well, the old story of "When I'm With You" by Sheriff, which people may not know, but it came out in 1982, and then a radio station in Seattle played it again in '88. It became a worldwide hit, bigger than it ever was the first time. And the band wasn't even together anymore. And unfortunately, that resulted in a huge legal battle over, who got the money from from the resurgence of that song. But stuff like that, it absolutely can happen. And I mean, it's just keeping in the grill of these people that make these decisions.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing. As you know, I remastered the second album by Helix, White Leather and White Lace and Black Leather. That was came out in 1981. I've remastered it. We released the second track, Women, Whiskey, and Sin. That came out on April the 12th, and now has over 20,000 all-time streams on it. Not bad for a song that's already seen its day. Many years ago. In fact, 43 years ago, as a matter of fact.
It's crazy. And, all that's old is new again. I had a post, I think it was today or yesterday. It was basically about never giving up, because, it's just one of those things where I've talked to so many people where they were almost there and they gave up, and the next day, if they had held on one more day, right? And, it's funny how if you just don't give up on that stuff. It always has a chance. It never has a chance if you give up. And if you keep swinging, it's always got a chance.
And I don't think that there's ever a day that goes by that I don't think that I could maybe invest my time in other things. As my clock's, I'm at a different place in my life right now than you are. My clock is, you know, getting to the point where I'm in that golden year phase now. So it's kind of like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life, and how, what slices of my life do I want to spend here, and what slices of my life do I want to spend there. um and so this is why what I'm doing moving forward and getting positioned with other people that are going to help out with the label makes a whole lot of sense, as I may, decide to not be as involved down the road as I am now, and get other people involved and have this actually be a label owned by artists for artists.
Novel thought.
You know,
I think you always need, and this, please, my musician friends, don't take this out of me, but I sometimes musicians are not great business people because the I just went through. I'm actually in the middle of a phase right now where I've said it a bunch of times where I feel like I've been the least creative in terms of my music that I have because I'm spending so much time on other aspects of the business. And to sit down and hit the drums for an hour and a half, 2 hours is great because it gives me that creative sort of thing. Um, and it's weird because a lot of musicians don't maneuver too well in that sort of space, right? Because it's not fun and it's not why you get involved in music in the first place. And I get it because, like I say, I'm in the middle of, going, oh my god, my creativity's in the dumper, but things are happening, right?
here's an interesting thing. I mean, there's a correlation between physicians, doctors, and musicians. Doctors typically are not very good at running businesses because they're a physician. That's their job, is to look after people.
Hmm.
And I know a person who actually made a business out of running businesses for doctors, helping them to incorporate businesses, and helping them to tax shelter their money, and also helping them with things like health billing, like OHIP billing, um, head leases, negotiating head leases, and minimizing their overhead,
Hmm.
to save them on the cost level. People don't realize that even as a doctor, how much overhead a physician has: office staff, renting an office, medical liability insurance. There's a whole host of things that go along there with their. I want to put something out there tonight. The hardship that happens with musicians. Good friend of ours, Jeff Pearson, with Visions of Morpheus, had a bunch of musical equipment stolen out of his automobile recently.
Well,
He was parked outside, on a very busy street, well lit, security cameras, all kinds of stuff around. Someone broke into his vehicle and took several $1,000s worth of equipment out of his vehicle. Um, his automobile insurance won't cover it because he doesn't have commercial insurance because he makes his living at music.
hmm.
I mean, what a horrible thing to do to somebody, right? um and then, they have no recourse, and of course he's low priority for the police to do anything about this theft, even though there's video available for the cops to go and get, but he can't go and request it. um and we know that equipment has probably been pawned long time ago now, and probably been resold, and maybe even the buyer isn't even aware that they bought stolen equipment.
Probably not. I mean, it's like The Simpsons. Ned Flanders says insurance is just a form of gambling, and that proves it once again. Not to beat up on insurance providers, but uh, so I had a friend that exact same thing happened. Um, Somebody kicked out a window of his car, stole a bunch of stuff. Took him 10 months, but a bunch of his friends knew what was missing. They found one of them in a pawn shop, literally a 2-minute walk from where my friend lives.
Wow.
Um, they were able to trace the serial number back to Long and McQuaid, And anyway, he ended up getting almost everything back, but he had a lot. It was a stressful thing because he had a lot of stuff that was high value. He had a lot of stuff that was sentimental value that you can't find anymore. So anybody that does that is a miserable human being. Period.
Yeah, you want to do something and really really help out a band when they're playing live at a gig, and you're a close friend with the band. Stay and watch their equipment while it's being offloaded,
Absolutely.
so that you can watch, make sure no one comes along. I can't count the number of times I've heard stories where, the guitar cases were sitting by the back door ready to be offloaded, and somebody grabbed two guitars and walked out the door with them.
I was at a show last Friday night, and it was a total accident. Actually, somebody grabbed a case that looked very much like theirs, and it turned out to be a guitar of another band guy. And they were able to call the guy and say, "Hey, it was." And they squared it up, and I mean that happens a lot.
Yep.
But I will say it's really musicians that steal other musicians' stuff. There's just sort of a bro code or a sister code there that that really happens, right? Um, and I don't even have any qualms about saying that. If anybody thinks that musicians are these people that are always on the down and out looking to steal stuff, that ain't the case, man.
No.
Musicians are the most respectable people out there, and they show it every time they go into a bar and play for what they're not worth.
Yeah,
But they do it anyway, and they show
it's
up.
usually somebody looking for a quick buck that can pawn it off on a
Absolutely,
pawn shop. So,
absolutely.
but I wanted to put that out there because that's one of those things that isn't a return on investment. You have all this money invested in equipment, and next thing somebody doesn't respect that investment.
He's in Oshawa, is that right?
Yeah, he's in Oshawa. Yeah.
Tell him to send me a post about that, and I've got a ton of people in Oshawa and Pickering and all
Right.
around there.
Yeah, I asked him about how were the police helpful. He said no, not really. He said I've gone around to some of the local pawn shops and they weren't really helpful either in terms of helping me.
See, but they got a thing. They can't put anything out. I don't know if it's an actual legislative law, but most legit pawn shops won't put stuff out for 30 days.
Right.
And the reason is they leave that time for the police to come in and find it if they have stolen items and whatnot.
Right.
If it does go up, the pawn shop's really liable because they don't know. But it's probably 30 days before any of that stuff would start showing its face.
Yeah, I mean it can take an awful long time for I mean, I'm sure it's low priority for the police.
Oh yeah.
you know, it's probably a low priority for the case for the police, and it depends on the dollar value too, right? I mean, the dollar value, and sometimes the dollar value is easy to establish, especially if the artist has the receipts for the equipment
Yep.
and can prove the investment in the equipment. It makes it easier for the cops because now it's not a theft under 1,000. Now it's like a major theft.
Well, and I'll
Um,
give somebody a piece of advice if they want to listen from a dumb drummer. But if you're buying your stuff from a place like Long and McQuaid or anything like that, you can go in and ask them for a yearly statement, and they will print off every nickel that you've spent. And it helps for taxes, it helps for insurance, it helps for theft, it helps for a ton of things. And I do it probably every 6 months, just because you forget what you purchased.
Yeah, Long and McQuaid actually will email your receipts, which is
Yep.
really really cool. And so when they email me the receipts, I PDF them and I put them in a PDF file, and that's what I use at the end of the year for figuring out what I spent on equipment.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, Long and McQuaid's probably the main place that I go to. Um, I found that they're as reasonable as any online service. In fact, if you can bring them a price that's within not astronomically different, but definitely different, they'll match that price for you.
Yep, and they've done it for me a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Nelson Taves, who used to be in the Kitchener store in Ontario, we have him here in Dartmouth now, and he's my drum guru guy. And of course, I want to give a shout out to I'm selling stuff here too. My buddy Craig Toots Toussaint, who's my Mapex Canada guy, who takes care of me too. Those guys are key players in my life. There's no question.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it, everybody. Return on investment is definitely a big thing. Don't count your time as nothing. Your time is worth something. Think about that when you're thinking about what you're going to charge a venue to play. because all those hours of setup, those hours of teardown, they're all part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. We didn't cover loyalty in the music business,
No,
and
no.
for a carryover for next week, I would
Yeah.
just like to leave this as food for thought. Be loyal because most people aren't, and it's painful when you're loyal, but it will pay off, and that's all I'm saying. Because all those people that aren't loyal, bad stuff happens to them.
Okay, so next week's main topic will be loyalty in the music business. We'll get into that, deep into that next week, and probably a few rabbit holes along the way. We always do, and I always enjoy these talks. So we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, Sean, for coming in. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you doing the show. You are a welcome addition to what we do here.
Well, thank you. You know what? It's rare that I get that type of feedback, so I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I know you're welcome addition. I get comments and compliments all the time on your contributions on the show, so I certainly appreciate that. Want to thank you all for joining us. Sean from the podcast Bar Stools and Band Talk Rim Shots with Sean. You can catch it on YouTube. There's a show every week, right?
It's more than every week, man. I'm averaging. So I hit the 500th interview 2 weeks ago. We celebrated our 4th anniversary on April 28th, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And typically we average 2 podcasts a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of the recent ones we had Mark Turnillo, who's the lead singer from Accept. He was on there. He was fantastic. Interviewed. Go check it out. There's a ton. We had a roundtable with some women in the entertainment business that actually wound up on Eastlink TV. That was very popular. Just one quick stat, because you know you're a stat guy, and I was trying to figure something out. In my YouTube studio, my gender the last month, 98.4% men, 1.6, and I was like, what the heck? Then I figured out I had the highest amount of interviews with female artists last month.
Right.
And that's a direct result why. So all's not lost. It was a productive month from that standpoint. But I mean, the ladies are resonating, man, because 98.4% men paid attention to what they said, and I think that's important.
Well, here's an interesting stat. I'm gonna since you were in stats, and we'll close out with some of these stats tonight. I'm just going to throw some stats at you from our YouTube channel here. We've got 1.37 thousand subscribers now. We have 246 videos on the channel. And of those videos, of course, Michelle Ryder's videos are topping the views. We've got Lie to Me, which is sitting just around the 10,000 mark right now. And
well, and this just in, you're going to see that go up because I had a couple of days of talking to people that are on her. I've collected a lot of emails over the last 4 years, and when I say to you, it's hard, sweaty, back-breaking labor, it's literally going out to those people and saying, share it. So you're going to see that number go up, I promise you.
Right, we got some great videos coming up for you as well. So keep your eyes on our YouTube channel at Indie Tunes Records. We've got a new video coming out this Friday for sure by Visions of Morpheus, and it is called. I'm going to make sure that I get this correct. So just bear with me a second here. It is called "Watch the World Burn," and then there's another one that's going to be coming out called Ghost, which is off of their full-length album, which is a waterfall release. We're doing a ton of these waterfall releases now, and I would suspect that we're going to see the same thing with Michelle's music. That it's technically a waterfall release of a much larger project.
Mm-hmm.
So keep watching for those new releases to come out, and lots more coming your way from Indie Tunes Records. I am Kenny. You are not. This is the Indie Show.